Thanks.
Well, very good. Well, want to welcome everybody to this special webinar edition with Startup Hypeman, RajNATION here. I'm going to let Raj introduce himself, but just real quick, my name is Jeff Erickson. I'm with a company called Forecastr. We make financial modeling easy for founders, so we work with a lot of founders. I'm also an active angel investor and startup mentor. I've seen hundreds of startup pitches. And so this was a topic that I was super excited about as we start talking about how to pitch your startup and not suck at it, because we all suck at it in a lot of ways. And so we're going to figure out how to not suck as bad. But Raj is an incredible ambassador for startups, but also he knows his stuff. As I've gotten to know Raj better and better, he's been in the startup space for a lot of years now, and I'm sure he's seen more pitch decks than I have, and I've seen a lot. But he is a great coach for founders, coaches on how to present, how to tell your story, all things startup. And so super excited to have him present this to the group today. Raj, I'm going to hand things off to you, let you do an official, more official introduction of yourself and give us a little bit of your background. And then super excited to hear and learn about not sucking it when we pitch.
Yeah, right on. Appreciate that, Jeff. Thank you to the Forecastr community for having me in your offices, your living rooms, wherever, your backyards, wherever you're at today. Maybe it's your vacation house. I'm really excited to be here. If you just popped in, just as you're getting settled in, let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from and what your company is. I'll do a more thorough introduction to myself in a few minutes, but I want to start to just dive in right away. This is how to not suck at pitching your startup. So if we're here today, it means we care about that and wanting to be pretty confident and competent at how we pitch. What we're going to focus on today is a few key areas. Specifically, the emphasis of today is your elevator pitch. That is what I think is the key to unlocking the pitch deck and everything else. But if you can get the elevator pitch right first, everything else becomes 10 times easier. So in today's workshop, we're going to first go through the mindset you need around pitching. Then I'm going to show you the formulas and strategies to develop your elevator pitch. And then I'll show you actual examples using those formulas and strategies. There is a part 2 of this workshop that we don't have time for today, but what I'm going to do in a follow-up email after this is send you what I call the director's cut version of this workshop. It is a pre-recorded edition that takes everything from today and truncates it down to about 20 minutes. And then there's an extra 15, 20 minutes on top of that, specifically dedicated to advanced pitch deck strategies. So how to work storytelling into your pitch deck. And when I say advanced, I mean there's not one part of that where I say, here's what a 10-slide outline should look like. So think about all the things that aren't just easily Googleable. That's what's in the director's cut version that you'll get as a follow-up. If you've got questions throughout, drop them in the chat. I'll leave it to Jeff to determine if it makes sense to answer it, to bring it up in the moment, or to wait on it towards the end. If I happen to glance at it and think it's worth answering in that moment, I will. And if I don't answer it in that moment, just trust we'll get to it at the end. All right. So all that said, let's dive into how to not suck at pitching your startup. Again, my name is Raj with Startup Hypeman. I always like to share our mission first. And you've probably heard 9 out of 10 companies fail. You've probably also heard that women and minority-owned companies get on the very high end of a generous publication, 8% of venture funding. It's usually about 2% though. To me, this is an environment that is designed for failure. And it is our mission at Startup Hypeman to make success inevitable by leveraging the power of story, making success inevitable, not the exception. And I like to say we can create a new reality where the 3 inevitables of life are death, taxes, but also in between those two things, your startup making it. And the more we can focus on getting the right story, pitch, message down, the more that really becomes an actual reality and opportunity. So you all tuned into a workshop today. What you didn't realize in doing that is that you also tuned into a live interactive game show called Pitch Your Startup. That's right. It's Pitch Your Startup, the only live interactive game show hosted right here on Zoom, where a room of entrepreneurs are pit in front of their peers, where they have to do none other than, you guessed it, pitch their startup. So what I would like is one volunteer who would like to come on down. I will put you on the clock. I'll give you 60 seconds. And your goal is to pitch me. Who would like to be our volunteer? All right. I think I saw Tyler's hand go up. Tyler, come on down. Let's everyone give Tyler a round of applause. Woo-hoo. All right, Tyler, bring yourself off mute. I believe you should be able to do that yourself. Yeah, Tyler, you're off mute now?
How you doing, sir?
I am, I believe.
Good. Eddie somehow went off of mute as well. So Eddie,
Yes,
I
sir.
need you to go back onto mute.
right. Oh, hey, that's Miss Finch. How you doing? Oh, that ain't Miss Finch back there. Who is that? I can't see who that is back there. Oh, hey.
I don't know how to put him on mute. All right, Tyler. So tell me, am I going to be your target customer or my target investor?
I guess target investor.
Okay, great. I'm going to put 60 seconds on the clock. When I say go, you may begin. So Tyler, ready, go.
So there are countless companies across the country that have become professionals in what they do or the products they sell. Because of that, they have to deliver their product to somebody else's doorstep. And with that, they're forced into trucking. The things that they run into when they go into trucking is they either can pay high premiums through leasing companies, or they have to pay third-party delivery systems, which are at a high premium as well, and they lose control of their operations. They don't have a real understanding of what it takes to run a fleet. And with our solution at Transit, it gives them the tools to be able to know exactly what it costs per mile to run their fleet, mitigate risk, and reduce costs drastically. Oh, you're on mute.
You're on mute now, Raj.
All right, Nick clocks in at about 55 seconds. Everyone give Tyler a round of applause. Thank you for being brave, Tyler. Stay with me here for a second, Tyler.
All right.
How do you feel?
Well, I don't know if I've ever done a 60-second elevator pitch. I probably should have practiced that a bunch more, but I was willing to do it to get some real feedback.
Great, great. Scale of 1 to 10, how would you rank it?
Me?
Yeah.
I would probably rank it maybe a 6.
Yeah, cool. I think I put it around there as well. I think you have the right starting point for that. I like how you led with some of the issues that are happening in the market. What you'd want to do is really dial that in a lot more so it gets more specific. And I think there was a part where, I don't know if you felt this, but it kind of felt like you're like, okay, what's the next thing I should say in this row of issues that exist in the market? So tightening that up a little bit more. And then when you talk about your product, being able to really bring it home by tying it back to those issues you presented up front will really help plus that up. So what I want to do today is all the stuff we talk about. I want to give you those ideas and resources and tools so you can take it from a 6 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10. Does that sound like a deal?
Sounds like a great deal. I really appreciate the feedback.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Tyler. So everyone else who did not, or Jeff, you have a note you want to add?
I was going to just say, when Raj said that, I'll bet there was fear that just went throughout the audience. It's like, oh, what am I going to say? What would I say if it were me? And I was called on. And I think, Tyler, kudos for jumping in and doing it. But I think we want to turn that around to when somebody says, who's going to give me their 60-second elevator pitch, that every one of your hands is going to go up and go, I'm ready. I want to rock this. And I think that's where we want to get to today, Raj.
Definitely. And that's a perfect segue actually into the next question I was going to ask everyone, which you can throw your answers in the chat here. If you did not raise your hand, I saw Tyler's hand go up, and a second later, I saw Arazu. Is that, did I say your name right? Arazu's hand go up. I didn't see anyone else's hand shoot up. In the chat, let me know, why did you not jump at the opportunity? I gave you a platform to talk about your company in front of a lot of people, some of them potentially who could help you, whether they may be a secret investor hiding in the background or they have a strategic connection for you. Why did you not jump at that opportunity? Throw your answers in the chat, and as those start rolling in, I'll tell you, I do this workshop a lot, and 99% of the people in that moment will not throw their hand up. And most often what they'll say is, oh, you know, like, didn't feel ready. Yeah, Jennifer said, like, lack of confidence, not used to being put on the spot, things like that. So if that was you in this moment, I want to let you know that you're really not alone. That's really, I think, would say what the default operating mode is of founders, is not used to being put on the spot, or not ready, don't have something figured out yet, fear, yeah, I'm unprepared. The reality is that is the default operating mode. You're not alone, but I don't want you to leave today thinking that that's okay. Just because you're not alone doesn't mean that it's okay. Because the reality is, on the spot is the only spot that matters. What's never going to happen is an investor walks up to you and says, hey, Terry, not today, but tomorrow at this time, I'm going to meet you back on this piece of sidewalk, and then I want you to pitch me. I'm just giving you a 24-hour heads up here. So, like, get your stuff together, and then tomorrow I'll meet you at this exact time on this exact sidewalk slab, and then we'll talk. That's never going to happen, right? What is going to happen is you will have the networking events that you're at, right? You will get introduced by someone else. You will perhaps actually be in an elevator, and you will get asked the question, what does your company do? And it's in those moments that you've got to be prepared, right? So on the spot is really the only spot that counts. So today it's okay to be unprepared, but coming out of today, I don't want you to walk around thinking it's okay to be unprepared. You got to always be prepared, because that moment could happen at any given point. And a really good example of this is, a few months ago, I was teaching this workshop in person in Chicago at a accelerator. It was an open to the public event. And I had one of our clients come. I messaged them beforehand. I was like, hey, if you want to come, like, we had worked on their pitch, and I was like, hey, I'm going to teach the pitch formula. If you want to come, like, it's a good practice opportunity. I can give you the microphone during it, and you can give your pitch. And he was like, yeah, sure. So the workshop happens. I give him the microphone. He gives his pitch. He does great. And then afterwards, I didn't know this, it just so happened there was an investor in the room who walked up to him and said, I really liked your pitch. Here's my card. Can we set up a meeting next week? Right? Like, there is no better example of needing to be ready at any given moment for your pitch than that. So take that to heart, right? You always want to be ready on the spot. On the spot is the only spot that counts. And someone asked about will this be recorded? Yes, Jeff, yeah, it is being recorded. Yep. Okay, so I want to now share a story with you. As we talk about this stuff, I want to share the story of another founder who was just like all of you a few years ago. His name is Carson Goodale. He was the co-founder and CEO of a company called FanFood. And he took a really early version of this workshop. This was years ago. And afterwards, he was like, Raj, like, I think my pitch really sucks. Like, can we figure this out? And I was like, surely it's not that bad. Let me see what you got. And I asked him the same question. I said, pitch me. Put him on video, and here's what he said.
Alrighty, FanFood is a mobile concession app that allows fans at live events to order concessions from their phone. They can choose to have it delivered to their seat, or they can pick it up through an express line. The value add for the end user, the fan, is that we're going to maximize the user experience. The value add for the venue is that we're going to increase the revenues and the per caps. Yeah, that's it. So,
What would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10? Give me the chat here. Type in a number. 2, 7, 4, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4. Yeah, so we're basically staying 5 and under for the most part. the person who gave it a 7, I think you're being incredibly generous. I would probably rate it at about a 3 for a few reasons. One, there's like zero energy behind what he's saying. I don't even leave that thinking that he likes his own company. Right? It's a very flat delivery. It doesn't seem like he's interested in it at all. But even more so than that, perhaps, is the words behind it are so mechanical and technical, and it's not how people talk, right? You don't get into a conversation with someone and say, the value add for the end user is this. Meanwhile, the value add for this side of the market is this, right? We don't like talk in normal everyday speak like that. So it's a very like mechanical, technical way of going about this. And you could tell he didn't know where he wanted to finish either, right? Like by the end, he literally looks off to the side and says, that's it. That's all I got. Cut the tape. And you want to have something like you want to know where not only where you're starting, but where you're finishing as well. And this was at a point where they had developed their MVP. They had some initial beta customers and they were looking to gain traction in the marketplace and seek out investors. And he knew his team was capable of building something great. But as you saw, the pitch was, let's call it a streetcar named Desire. So he was like, all right, how do we figure this out? And we embarked on a journey together to figure that out. And I want to share with you as we talk through the strategies, I want to also give you an insight into Carson and FanFood's journey along the way. A little bit of background about me and why I care about this so much. My fundamental belief in life is that everyone deserves a voice. Everyone deserves to express themselves. And that's what fuels all of my professional and personal pursuits and everything that I care about. So I am this chameleon, weird hybrid of a hip hop artist. I am also part of that coming out in a couple months is the first ever startup themed hip hop album called Goat to Market. So be on the lookout for that. I'm also a yoga instructor, which is really helping people better express themselves in a physical capacity and get into their own mental expression as well. I'm a professional ring announcer for MMA and combat sports. Every now and then you may see me on some random TV channel if you happen to get like the Sports Plus package. And then all of this stuff comes together, and it's why I started startup Hypeman several years ago, was to help founders find their voice within their company. Because if you don't like, when you really think about it, your voice is your most valuable asset, more so than your IP, than your technology or anything like that. It's your voice that is going to carry you forward. And over the years, it's been cool to have voice have a real impact. We work with companies literally around the globe. Most recently, actually, we just signed on a company in our first ever company out of Ghana, which I'm really excited about. And the strategies we're going to talk through today have helped generate millions across capital raises and incremental sales. And a lot of pitch competition winners along the way as well. And we've been able to partner with some cool people in the game along the way too, like Forecastr being one of our new favorite people that are out there as well, helping uplift the ecosystem. So obviously, I think this stuff is important. If you don't want to take my word for it, let me share with you the word of a couple other people. This guy here, his name coincidentally is also Raj. His name is Raj Bhargava. He is the, I like to joke, he's like the Tom Brady of entrepreneurship. I feel like in the startup game, in an IPO or an exit is the equivalent of winning a Super Bowl. And he has started 7 companies, 4 of which have, I think 3 or 4 have IPO'd. The other 3 or 4 have been acquired, and he's still on the board of his 7th and running his 8th company now. It's kind of wild, like how successful he's been over the years. His first company was responsible for getting ESPN and other major brands on the internet, which is wild, right? They have a streaming platform now. His first company, and it's weird because he also looks like he's maybe like in his late 20s in the photo. But his first company got ESPN online in the first place. So he also helped co-found Techstars originally, and he co-authored a book called The Startup Playbook. I highly recommend everyone go out and read that. It's called The Startup Playbook. I think what's funny, it's like an A to Z manual of running your company and building a high growth venture. I think what's funny is like chapter 14 or 15 is on raising capital. And the first words on that page are, I'm going to guess you flipped to this chapter first. If you did, please go back and read the first 13, 14 chapters so you know if this chapter actually makes sense for you or not. So I had him on my podcast years back, and I didn't like lead the witness or anything, but I asked him like, hey, what's a area that most startups are overlooking early on that they need to slow down and focus on? And his response was, I think messaging is one of the most important things that startups can focus on, and it gets glossed over all the time. I think most companies fail at it, and that's probably why a lot of them actually fail overall. So if you don't take my word for it, take his word for it. If you don't take his word for it, take this other guy, Sean Amirati's word for it. He told me how you end up like a WordPress or a YouTube is you have your foundational elevator pitch extremely tight. It really is the core building block upon which you can build all the different communication aspects that are important for your business. Sean is a professor of entrepreneurship at Carnegie Mellon University. He's also an angel investor. And he authored a book called The Science of Growth, another one that I highly recommend you read. That's also on audiobook. Him and his research team at Carnegie Mellon studied nearly identical products in nearly identical markets, and then were able to find what were the factors that led one to scale up and the other to stall out. So for example, we all use YouTube today, but at the time of YouTube's come up, there was another company called Rever. Rever does not exist anymore, and YouTube is a household name. So what were the things that had YouTube grow, whereas Rever stalled out? That second part of his quote there is really important. It's not just an elevator pitch for investors. You're creating the core building block of communication for your entire company. Everything else can grow off of the elevator pitch. That if you have that right, that's how important it is. And if you don't want to take his word for it, grab Kayla Weisberg's word for it. She's an active investor in Chicago. She simply told me, hey, look, story is everything. Without it, we cannot invest. So can we all agree that storytelling, that messaging, that pitching is important by a nod of heads? Yes? Yeah? Okay, great. If that's the case, let's do a little interaction here. I want you all to come off mute, and we'll do a call and response. Just repeat after me. Bring yourselves off mute and repeat after me. My startup does not mean shit.
My startup
does not mean shit.
Without a compelling story.
Without a compelling story.
All right, beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate that. Take yourselves back on mute. Story is going to be your ultimate differentiator, and it starts with your pitch. A really good example that brings this point home is Netflix. Reed Hastings in 2005, he actually said, like early on, we were investing 1% to 2% of our revenue every year in downloading. Because what's going to happen is we want to be ready when video on demand happens. That's why we called it Netflix, not DVD by mail. So they were even thinking of their messaging and the story they were going to fulfill early on, right? That's how important this stuff can be. And think about if they had to go through, like if they called themselves DVD by mail out of the gate, people would not have understood why are you doing streaming now? You're a DVD company. Right? But they understood where they were trying to go. They understood how to get the message out there. So we can all agree that this is important, right? Let's talk about what we care about at the end of the day. Money, right? This is what we're all in this for. We're trying to raise capital. We're trying to generate revenue. Money also equals creating jobs, right? It means creating economic impact. It means being able to provide for our families, right? Set up generational wealth. These are all the things that we care about at the end of the day. And we know this is important, but then we also, at the same time, we can agree that pitching and storytelling is important, but there's this major delta in between those two things. And it can be really tough to get this money when you have those situations where you're not ready on the spot, or you feel like what you're saying is almost like you're tongue-tied. Maybe you felt a little bit like this, or you didn't raise your hand before because you worried it might sound something like this.
The dog, you put the food in the thing, and then the dog sees it, and food's dangling. Dog looks at dang, tail wag, dog wagging the tail, whatever dog's name is. Dog's name is Claire. Claire, come in. Claire sees dog food, pick, Facebook, like.
Sizzle. Strategy. Sex. Something.
This is the worst pitch I have ever seen.
Right? Not the ideal scenario to be in there. So that's obviously a little bit of an exaggeration, but I think you get the point. And it can be really challenging if that's where you feel you're at, or you almost, I can sympathize if you feel like you're talking and you're like, I don't even know what I'm saying, but my mouth is going and I don't know if what I'm saying is actually producing value or not. So what is it that's holding us back at the end of the day? Well, over the years, I have come up with this theory I call the messaging treadmill. I've talked to probably like maybe 2,000, maybe up to 3,000 different entrepreneurs over the years at this point. And the top 3 reasons that have come up, I call it the messaging treadmill because it's like every step forward is a step backward, or like you feel like you're running in place or running in a circle, where it's like we try and fix this stuff, but every time we do, we get held back for one of these 3 reasons. Reason 1 is being too in the weeds of your own company. You think about what is it like to step back from this thing, zoom out, and talk about it with fresh eyes and fresh ears. Number 2 is perhaps you're too technical. Like, product, you're the engineer, code, but communication perhaps is not the strong suit. And then number 3 is being too caught up in the day-to-day, right? You're a founder, you got a million other things that are going on. Inevitably, figuring out what your pitch should be is the thing that gets pushed to a last-minute exercise, like right before you think you're going to need it. And that can really be like, these are the 3 things that tend to get in the way the most often. Let me know in the chat which, using numbers 1, 2, or 3, or a combination of them, which of these you feel apply to your situation. Nate's saying too caught up. So that's number 3. Combination of all 3. Jake's saying number 3, 1 and 3. Good. All right, so this resonates. The other unfortunate aspect of this is that this all only gets compounded by another factor as well, which is if you were to take these 3 items and put them into a gift box and wrap it up, there would be this bow that ties it all together. And the name of that bow would be a label that says entrepreneurship, which means ongoing daily mental crisis being an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur as well, so I get it. It's like every day is wake up, 7 a.m., pour your coffee, make the mistake of checking email while pouring your coffee. And you see it's like, oh my God, the app's been down the last 14 hours and no one knew about it. What are we going to do? Our users hate us. And then 9 a.m. rolls around and you get an email from an investor who's potentially interested. And you're like, okay, hey, this day's going to turn around after all. But then 10 a.m., you get another email from an investor that you last met with, and they're like, we're going to pass on you. And you're like, oh crap, this is no good. 11 a.m., you have some angry customers who are like, why is the app not fixed yet? I've been trying to log into this for a day and it won't work for me. And then everything feels like it's crashing down. And by 2 p.m., you're like, I really should have just listened to my family and stayed in that stable salary, secure job and not done this. What was I thinking? 4 p.m., something good happens. 5 p.m., you start to wind down and go home. And somehow we get up and do this again tomorrow. And we do it every day. And as entrepreneurs, it's a 7-day mental occupation if it's not a physical occupation, right? It's always on your mind. So when that's happening, it can be really hard to have a positive impression of your own company. When you know all the shit that's happening behind the scenes, a lot of times we're like, we don't even think that what we're like, we delude ourselves. Like, am I even building anything that's that interesting anymore? Like, all of this bad stuff is happening. So how would anyone else find it interesting, right? And so that makes it a lot tougher. And that's what makes the treadmill that much more of a consistent factor in our lives. Carson and FanFood were stuck on this treadmill, leaning heavily towards reasons 1 and 3, being too in the weeds and too caught up in the day-to-day. So I said to him, all right, well, let's slow down and reframe how we're thinking about this in the first place. And so the first lesson I want to hit all of y'all with is mindset. And so the mindset I told to Carson is, from this day forward, I want you to stop thinking like an entrepreneur. And instead, I want you to think like an entertainer. Why an entertainer? Because an entertainer has one goal in mind. How do I make my audience feel something, right? How do I move them? How do I get an emotional connection with them? How do I have them leaving this arena buzzing with energy with their friends, buzzing with a particular kind of energy with their friends? Think of your favorite music artist. When you go and see them live, do you know what they don't do? They don't go, all right, how's everyone doing tonight? And you're like, yeah, we're great. Okay, so check it. Tonight, we're going to play every song in our entire catalog. That's 11 albums, about 14 songs per album. We don't just want to play all those. We also want to do some of the B-sides as well and share some of the working drafts we've been doing in our garage that aren't fine-tuned yet. And you might not like them, but we like them a lot. And then after that's complete, we also want to give you a window into our 6 to 9 month upcoming music roadmap. Overall, this will take 27 hours to complete. So who's with me? Right? Even a diehard fan, even your favorite artist, you're going to be like, yo, just play the hits already. Come on. And that's why you need to be an entertainer. Your job is to play the hits, right? Give them your curated set list. That's what your pitch is, your curated set list. Because the entertainer, they start and they say, what emotion do I want them having by the end of this whole performance? And then they curate their set list based off of delivering that emotion. And then they cut things out of the set list if they feel it's going to take away from that. Or they specifically add certain things because they know it's going to contribute to that. And having that set list is what gives them a template for the night, but also allows them, based on the energy of the crowd, to do that random shout out or to break into that guitar solo or that freestyle rap they weren't necessarily planning, right? Similarly, if you know what your set list is, it gives you the ability to have some improvisation on the spot based on the crowd that day, based on your audience that day. But you don't want to go in with 100% of it being improvised. You want to know what you're supposed to say, and you know it so well that you have the ability to go off script if need be. That's why thinking like an entertainer is so, so important. And I think a great example of this is one of my favorite music artists, Jay-Z. This was a song that is, as of September of this year, will be 20 years old, which is crazy. Jay-Z, he had a song 20 years ago called Moment of Clarity, and he was comparing his success to other lesser well-known underground rappers by the names of Talib Kweli and Common Sense, were their names, or Common for shorthand. And he said in rhyme, he says, yo, I dumbed down for my audience and doubled my dollars. If skills sold, truth be told, I'd probably be lyrically Talib Kweli. Truthfully, I want to rhyme like Common Sense, but I did 5 mil. I ain't been rhyming like Common Sense. Now really think about what he's saying here. He's telling you, look, I have all the capability to be like the smartest, most intricate, socially conscious, lyrically dense rapper you've ever heard. I honestly could do that if I really, really wanted to. But I realized if I wanted to break through from the underground into the mainstream, I had to meet my audience where they were. And once I did that, I did 5 million sales of a single record, and I have not looked back since. And just in the last few years, Jay-Z became hip hop's first billionaire. He literally fulfilled his own prophecy, right, that he spoke 20 years ago. And similarly, think about what you're building. You're trying to break through into the mainstream consciousness of your industry, right? You start off what you're building on day one, you're an underground act, but you have to ask yourself, do I want to sell out basements or do I want to sell out arenas? And if you want to sell out arenas, then you really got to start meeting your audience where they are. There's a big difference between Taylor Swift, the country music artist, and Taylor Swift, the pop icon, right? Taylor Swift, the pop icon, breaks streaming records on Spotify. She breaks the platform and breaks Ticketmaster for concert sales. Taylor Swift, the country artist, you know, cool for a few people, but that's kind of it. So if you want to break through the mainstream, think like an entertainer, meet your audience where they are. Another really good way to visualize this is this graphic here from the company User Onboard, Super Mario. You have small Mario, that's your customer. You have the flower, that's your product. You combine those two things together, and you have big Mario on Fireball, shooting fireballs, killing bad guys, stomping over Koopa, and saving the day. And that is what you're selling at the end of the day. You are not selling the flower. You are selling Mario beating the bad guys at the end of the day. Take that to heart. We don't have time to watch this video, but Jeff, perhaps if you could drop maybe look it up and then drop the link into the chat. You go to YouTube, and it's weird because you type Google into YouTube, but in YouTube search bar, type Google search The Reunion. And this is a commercial from Google from a few years back. just make sure closed captioning is turned on because it's not in English. You will probably be crying by the end of that commercial. And that's just such a really good example of being there for their audience and showing up as a product, meeting your audience where they are and showing the other side of that Super Mario equation, the equal sign side. Yeah, in YouTube, you'll type in Google search, The Reunion. And Jeff will get you that link in the chat here momentarily. All right, so now how do we take this mindset and start to apply it to a pitch? Let's think about elevator pitches for a moment. When I think about the greatest elevator pitch of all time, you know, is it Netflix? Is it Facebook? Is it Twitter? Is it, you know, is it Clubhouse? Or is it like Ford or GM or something like that? Actually, it's none of those. And instead, it is Will Smith and the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Now, earlier I said you didn't realize you were walking into a live game show. You also didn't realize you were walking into a live sing-along concert. So what I'd like you to do now is come off of mute and we're going to sing the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air theme song together. And it'll be great because everyone's got a different speed of internet connections. There'll be lags and all, but it'll be perfect. It'll be great. Don't worry. All right. And a 1, and a 2, and a 3. Now this is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down, and I'd like to take a minute, just sit right there. I'll tell you how I became the prince of a town called Bel-Air. Come on, everybody, join in West Philadelphia. Born and raised on the playground is where I spend most of my days. Chilling out, relaxing on cool, shooting some b-ball outside of the school when a couple of guys who were up to no good started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got one little fight. My mom got scared. She said, "You're moving with your auntie and uncle in Bel-Air." All right, end scene. Round of applause, everybody. All right, so why sing that? I mean, it's fun, yeah, but the reality is that's actually Will Smith's elevator pitch for the show, okay? What he's saying up front is, hey, I had this really rough upbringing in Philadelphia, and there was a good chance if I stayed there, I was gonna get involved in a lot of bad stuff. My mom recognized this early on, so she sent me packing to Bel-Air, California, so I could be surrounded by the right family structure, have access to the right education, and overall tap into the right resources so that I could fulfill my potential and grow into the man that she knew I was capable of becoming. Right? That's the story that's being told in the upfront elevator pitch. And because that elevator pitch is strong, every episode makes sense. Right? You have an understanding of the base plot in every episode. You can watch episode 1 or you can watch episode 101. When you turn it on, if you know that intro song, you have a basic understanding of what's about to happen in the show and what it's going to be built off of. And that's what your elevator pitch needs to do. It needs to give people a basic understanding of the plot so that way they can take in the larger show or the larger movie, right? You're trying to get them to buy the ticket to your movie. It's your intro to your show. It's your movie trailer. And we don't see trailers if the movie is bad, right? No one says that movie looks horrible. Can't wait to spend $22 on a ticket, $9 on parking, and $14 on popcorn to go see it. We do not, unless we're being intentionally ironic, we do not do that, right? So your trailer needs to help people want to buy the ticket to the show. And the show, the movie, whatever, is like that longer discussion with you, whether it's your pitch deck, whether it's getting into a conversation with a customer, whatever that might be. The other thing I want to point out is that notice how they didn't get to like season 5 and say, you know what, people get it by now. We can stop doing the theme song. They understand the point by now. No, every episode starts with the theme because they know it's always someone else's first time taking this in. And that person needs to be brought up to speed. And I share that anecdote with you because I'll tell you it really bothers me, the number of times I will see a founder start phoning it in because they get pitch fatigue. A great way you can see this on display is any conference you go to where there's like an exhibit hall. Just notice what the founders start doing like an hour in, because they've had to give a spiel a bunch of times over. And then after about an hour, now they start like shortcutting it. And they're like, okay, so our product does this, right? They had all this energy up front when they started the day. And then after about an hour, they start shortcutting it. You owe it to your audience to give it your best every single time, right? That's what you need to be doing. So it may be your 100th time, but it's always someone else's first time. So make sure you put it out there like it's with that enthusiasm, like it's the first time you're doing it every single time. All right. Now let's get into how we bring this into some formula and strategy. So in order to develop an elevator pitch, we need to first understand what our positioning in the market is. And this is the starting point we did with Carson and FanFood, and every pitch we work on, this is where we start. So in order to develop your pitch, you need to understand what is your position relative to the market. And you do this through a strategy I call the superhero positioning strategy. The idea here is you have to think of your startup as a superhero, because what do superheroes do? They help and they save people. What are you doing? You're helping and you're saving a certain set of people from something they're experiencing. I like to use Batman as the example here, because if you really look at Batman, he didn't actually have like a cosmic ability. He took access to capital and combined it with technology in order to serve the public good. Does that sound familiar? Right? Access to capital plus technology, let's serve the public good. Sounds like everyone here. Now, if you think of Batman, use the chat for me. Like, generally speaking, what's going on that makes Batman put on the cape to swoop in and save the day? And you can use the graphics on the slide as an example or to help. But like, what's going on that makes him say, I need to save the day? Childhood trauma. Yeah, I guess that's like the backstory behind it. But like, let's say like on that day, what's going on? Pain. Yeah, right? Like a lot of problems. Chaos, of course, right? Like people have like stolen tanks. Society is sinking into chaos. Yeah. Joker's blown up the hospital, the bank was robbed, someone's getting mugged in the street. All of these are reasons Batman puts on the cape. If it's like a 70-degree day, people don't have a care in the world, they got their dog for a walk, their kids at the park, you do not see Batman swoop in and be like, whoa, I'm here to save you. You know why he doesn't? Because people would think he's a creep, right? That's what the reaction would be to Batman if he tried to save the day on a sunny day. Batman only saves Gotham when Gotham needs saving. I always hear founders try to save Gotham on a sunny day. And what I mean by that is you ask them what your company does and they'll say, oh, we're an AI powered logistics platform delivering X, Y, and Z to the end consumer, right? They will start with some version of that. And that's saving Gotham before Gotham needs saving. But if you're going to put on that cape and be the superhero, there has to be something in place first. And that's where the superhero strategy comes in. And it says that in order for you, the superhero, to exist, you need to first have a person in distress, a village on fire. When you have those two things, you can activate a superpower. When the superpower is activated, the superhero comes in and saves the day. Or in business speak, you have the target audience, the problem they are experiencing, your approach to that problem, and ultimately the solution that you provide. This is how you develop your positioning. And when you do this, the competition doesn't really matter, which is great. If you're going to do this on your own, take out a piece of paper and draw 4 columns and just start bullet pointing your answers down underneath each. This is not where you have to worry about how it sounds. You just want to get the ideas out of your head into this organized brain dump. The beauty behind this exercise is it forces you to think about your audience first. And that's what's so important to unlocking all this pitch stuff is, can you be audience-led instead of product-led? So by starting here, you think about their situation before you think about what your product does and how it helps. And the more you can tie, and because you know their situation, the more you inevitably start tying your product to their situation. It's going to force you to think from a lens of empathy because you're thinking about your audience before yourself or before your product. With this, you can then extrapolate your elevator pitch. Now, I'm going to go to that on the next slide and show you the elevator pitch formula. I want to make sure everyone's ready for this, though. So if you are ready to see this pitch formula, go ahead and in all caps in the chat, type in the word pitch. Pitch, 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 pitch. All right, people are chanting it. The crowd wants it. All right, so this formula is the most simple and easy to remember, and at the same time, the most deadly effective time and time again. And I call it Que Pasa. Does anyone here know Spanish? Can you tell me in the chat, what does Que Pasa mean in Spanish? Yes, what's up? What's happening? What's up? Yeah, that's what you're doing with the Que Pasa elevator pitch formula. You're telling people what's up with the situation, what's up with your company. Que Pasa, P-A-S-A, which stands for problem, approach, solution, action. Problem, approach, solution, action. Problem, approach, solution, action. Problem, approach, solution, action. Tyler, can I indulge you for, or can you indulge me for a second again? Come on,
yes, sir.
For a second. Great. And just out loud for everyone else so they don't only hear it from my voice, please go through the Que Pasa, say problem, approach, solution, action.
Problem, approach, solution, action.
Do it one more time.
Problem, approach, solution, action.
One more time.
Problem, approach, solution, action.
Boom, there it is. There it is. Que Pasa, love it. Thank you, Tyler. Now, collectively between Tyler and I, you've heard it like 15 times. So science says you're more likely to remember this formula now. This is the key to unlocking your pitch. This is what we do with Carson and FanFood. This is what we do every company we work with. We use this as the elevator pitch formula. Why does this work so well? Because by starting with the problem, you force yourself to provide context and frame of reference for why you should exist first. And most importantly, you lead with empathy. You show where things are today for your audience, for your market, and that's why you're doing something about it. Que Pasa. The first two questions people have about this is, what is action? Action is like your call to action. What do you want them to do? You could also think about it as an ask as well. So that'll depend based on the situation you're in. This works really good as like landing page copy. And in this case, your action might be like click to see a demo or click to learn more. In a one-on-one conversation, maybe your action is you ask them a question to help understand how they relate to that situation. The second question people have is, what's the difference between approach and solution? Approach is going to be your catchy, sexy one or two liner that is your ultimate brand promise. And then that bridges into your solution. The solution is going to be like, what does it do? How does it help? Why should we care? Like, what is the product and all that stuff? But the approach lives above that like granular description, and it's your ultimate brand promise. All right. We want to see some examples now? Yeah? Give me some nods, yeah? Okay. Let's take a look at some examples. First company I want to show you, is a company called Cyber Pop-Up. Christine Iswakor is the founder of Cyber Pop-Up. She was executing her product as a service just to get some initial traction off the ground. And then she knew she wanted to get into the venture game very soon. She also wanted to start putting her startup on the map and entering pitch competitions as well. So here's what we did with Que Pasa. We took her company, and here's the pitch. Start with the problem. Your server was hacked. You failed an audit. Your latest software update is vulnerable. Cybersecurity is serious business. It's also highly specialized. So why would you find an expert from the same place your marketing team gets their freelance graphic designers? Meanwhile, traditional consulting firms take you through a sales process that lasts months, but you needed someone for the job like yesterday. Approach. Get vetted specialists in a fraction of the time at a time when you need it most with Cyber Pop-Up. Solution. Submit your project and get started as early as the same day. We manage the team and verify all your requirements are met, so you get the highest quality delivery without the headaches. Action. Cybersecurity isn't a matter of if, but when. So when it hits the fan, go to cyberpopup.com. Capital letter C in the chat. If you have a baseline understanding of how they provide value to their audience, of small and medium-sized businesses. Good. All right, you're all getting this. Great. Que pasa at work? And again, we talked earlier about how the elevator pitch is the foundation to your messaging. This is the foundation to building the pitch deck. So we were able to build a pitch deck on top of this elevator pitch. And Christine went on a tear. She started getting into these pitch competitions, and these were the series of emails I got over the course of the year. Hey, in an email, sidebar, 120K yesterday. Just sidebar, 120K yesterday. And then a couple months later, hey, won another 5K this week. And then a couple months later, won 100K in a competition. The following weekend, she won another 100K. In total that year, she ended up getting media attention for all these pitch competition wins. In total that year, she raised about $250,000 in pitch competition capital. And all but like 5 or 8K of it was equity free. It was just prize money, right? That's how powerful Que Pasa can be for your startup. And again, it's not like she had crazy traction yet either. Like she was executing her marketplace model as a manual service. She didn't even have the product built yet. Let's take another look at another company, Honest Game. I love their story because they were like, you know, Kim and Joyce, two co-founders of this company. Kim came up to me and she's like, all right, look, every time Joyce and I talk to this about people, we say something different. Like we could be in the same room and talk to two different people. Those people will talk to each other and they won't even know they talk to the same company. And we just know we got to get this straightened out. We don't even know if we want to raise capital, but we know at least we gotta get this figured out. And so we applied the Que Pasa model as the starting point for their elevator pitch. They actually took that and converted it into an explainer video. So we'll show you the pitch through this video.
The BetterHelp platform brings counseling to people and brings me to people where they are.
It really.
Okay. Here we go. We start with the problem.
When you're a star high school student athlete, you compete tirelessly on the court and in the classroom to achieve your one dream of playing in college. Top schools recruit you and even offer you a scholarship. Then senior year hits and you find out that the class you took actually doesn't count. Your GPA is 0.25 off or your SAT score is 10 points too low. Even with the experts in your corner, school counselors, parents, and coaches, athletic eligibility rules can be confusing to navigate. And often by the time you find out you're ineligible, it's too late to catch up. Boom. Game over.
Approach.
Honest Game is the clear pathway for getting in. We automate the process so the student, the parent, the coach, the counselor, and the college all get real-time eligibility updates. With Honest Game, everyone knows what to do before it's too late.
I'll pause it here, just in the interest of time, because it goes into a little bit more of extra detail, but then it goes into the action from there. Capital letters HG. If you understand how Honest Game is valuable to those student athletes and those colleges recruiting them. Great. Yeah, and Paul, you're right. That video does need more views. So as it so turned out, there was an opportunity for Honest Game to enter this, there was a competition being held by the Chicago Bulls in partnership with Loud Capital. And I told them about it and I was like, I think this would be a really good opportunity for you because these are the people you want to get in front of. Loud Capital is a great investment group. They can be strategic partners for you. And they ended up applying. 221 companies applied to this. Only out of that was a top 20 selected. And Honest Game made it into the top 20 semifinals. Those 20 got to pitch. And from there, a top 5 was selected. Honest Game made it into the top 5 and they were beating out, they had like 5 unpaid beta schools on their platform at this point. And they were beating out companies who already had 6 figures of annual revenue. They made it into the top 5 and then they got to pitch on center court at the United Center in front of Bulls executives, 4-time NBA champion Horace Grant, some other Chicago business leaders, and the Loud Capital team. I got to be there for it. It was a really cool experience being one of those top 5. Cool thing is their story didn't end there. The next night at the Bulls game, the winner was announced during the first time out of the game. And guess who got to stand tall, holding the check for $50K investment, but honest game, right? Just a really cool story. And again, like they didn't have all the crazy traction yet, but they had the best pitch that was available, that was out there. I was doing this workshop a couple months ago, and someone else on the workshop was like, yeah, I was one of the companies they beat. So I'm telling you, like, this process can really take you places. This formula can really take you places. And this was the start of like a launch pad for them. They ended up oversubscribing a $2 million seed round after that. And I believe last year they crossed $1 million of annual revenue. And this was 2020. They were pre-revenue. Someone asked, was their pitch the video? Their elevator pitch was what the script was of that video. But what I'm saying is they were able to take the pitch and you can use it for multiple purposes. So they ended up creating a video out of it, but they actually did have an actual like pitch that like and a pitch deck and everything. Let's come back to Carson and FanFood. I know we're running short on time, so I'll breeze through this as quick as I can. You remember what his pitch was before? Let's look at what we turned it into with Que Pasa. As a diehard sports fan, there's nothing more frustrating than going to your favorite team's game and missing the big play because you were stuck waiting in line for a hot dog and beer. FanFood keeps you in the moment. Use our mobile ordering app and get your concession food delivered directly to your seat so you never miss a big play again. Download FanFood in the App Store today. Capital letters FF in the chat if you now understand what FanFood does. Good. All right, awesome. All you are following along with this, great. Notice how this takes out all the jargon, right? It takes out the technical nature of it, and it makes it easy to understand by pretty much anyone. You are helping your audience visualize the moment, right? And I have been there when Carson has done this pitch, and people have stopped him mid-sentence to tell him the game they were at and the play that they missed. One time someone said, wait, hang on. That was me. The Odell Beckham catch, the best catch in NFL history. I was sitting in the end zone. I paid $2,000 for an end zone seat where the catch happened, but I missed it because I had been in line for 30 minutes trying to get a beer. And like, that level of empathy and relatability, right? Like that's what you're striving for with your intended audience. The other thing I want to point out with all of these pitches is notice how the majority of the time is spent highlighting the problem. The more you do that, the less you have to say about your solution because the solution starts to write itself. And it's actually this almost like it's this Yoda Jedi mind trick thing where the better you can get at articulating the problem, your audience is going to start thinking ahead to where you're going with it, like what the solution probably is. So then when you deliver the solution, it's a thought they already had before you said it. So now it feels like something they knew was coming as opposed to like surprise information, right? And so it's like you planted the seed, but then you, without actually like giving it away. And so that's that cool like mental Jedi mind trick you're able to pull off. So what is at the end of the day, like the effect of great storytelling, right? We talked about all these examples and how this is not just your elevator pitch, but this is the foundation to all of your messaging. Well, with Carson and FanFood, let's take a look at where his pitch ended up and how he was, remember what it looked like before. One day I put him on the spot. I showed up at his office unannounced and I said, hey, let's do your elevator pitch. I'll put you on camera. And here's what it changed into.
Hey there, my name is Carson Goodell, CEO and co-founder of FanFood. Now, as a diehard sports fan, there's nothing more frustrating when you're at your team's game than missing a big play because you were stuck waiting in a line for a hot dog and beer. FanFood keeps you in the moment. Our mobile ordering app brings concessions directly to your seat, so you never have to miss the big play. Now, we are currently live in 5 venues in 3 different states, our 2 largest being a Major League Soccer venue and the Formula One Raceway down in Austin, Texas. Download our app today on the iOS and Android store.
Confidence. energy, swagger, the messaging makes sense, right? All of those things. So where did all this take them? Well, right out of the gate, FanFood raised $1,000, or they won $1,000 in a pitch competition. Shortly after that, they won $25,000 in another competition. They used that video as part of their submission to get in. From there, that $25K also came with an afternoon strategy advisory session with Damon from Shark Tank. They also then had a successful crowd fund. And then ultimately this built up to a roughly $3 million A round, and they expanded the product into basically every major sports and event league that there is. Carson himself will tell you the importance of storytelling as an entrepreneur. He said, hey, one of the most underrated skills is authentic storytelling. Developing this skill without a doubt has made me a stronger entrepreneur. And that is the power of storytelling. Now, I know we're short on time. I can stick around for questions. There's the thing I like to play at the end, if you want to stick around, is after they raised their round on his birthday, I gave him a little rap shout out online. We can watch that and then we can go into questions, or we can just go straight into questions. You tell me how you want to run these next couple minutes here.
How long? It looks like it's 1 minute.
Yeah.
All right, let's watch it.
Okay.
FanFood. Yeah, I'm rapping about the damn dude behind FanFood. Yeah, the man who does everything that you can't do. Wait. Let me start over. I don't like that. Yo, I'm rapping about the damn dude behind FanFood. Yeah, the man who does everything that you can't do. That's true. Now peep him though, the CEO agreed to make a heap of dough. Achieving it, you see the road, and dreaming big but sleeping no. And even though he's local now, believe in me, the team will grow and feed the meats at every meet. That's what I call hemoglobin. Not done. Keep me flowing. Carson is here for the ship, so let's keep it rowing. An entrepreneur, they used to look at him like, dude, you want to be sure. The B student, raised the Series A. Now they call him up like, I hear you getting paid. Selling into sports arenas? Go and drink the haterade. If you doubted him then, now, you ain't worth his data rate. He just turned 25, and what you're doing now, it could work, or, honestly, it could fail. But I prefer to be an optimist. So Carson, I say we celebrate with, well, what else but a good ale.
Because his last name is Good Ale. Get it?
Good Ale. Love it.
So that's the Carson.
Yeah, my brother. I wish you a very proud
birthday rap. All right, y'all.
Awesome.
Final closing notes, and then we'll take some questions here. You have a choice in building your company to make the messaging development as important as the product development. One supports the other. Or you could punt it down to the day when you're like, oh, now I need it, and you will feel behind from the start. Get out in front of this early on and make it a priority, right? You have the K-PASA formula, use that as your starting point and build from there. That QR code on the screen, if you scan that, that'll take you a link to my calendar page if you want to meet with me to talk about working on your pitch. This is something our team, literally, we work on like half dozen pitches every week. I'll also send you as a follow-up the director's cut recording and then a link to this exact recording as well. And remember, the director's cut recording has some extra notes in there about your pitch deck and how to make that really strong. One more thing I want to share is last week we launched the Goat to Market Club. Forecastr is one of our sponsor partners for that. We're really excited about it. The Goat to Market Club, GOAT meaning greatest of all time, is your home for learning and growing through go-to-market strategies. Every month we have a strategy drop where we teach a workshop on a very specific marketing, sales, fundraising, or customer acquisition strategy that you could take and put into play like right afterwards. We just launched this last week. Our first strategy drop is next Monday, and it is about building your brand's keystone beliefs. Go to Market Club is $9 a month only. It's less than Netflix, and your first month is free. So if you want to join that, please reach out, or in my follow-up email, I will send the sign-up link for that as well. And while supplies last, there's also a limited run of Startup Hypeman, Believe the Hype t-shirts, which are also free while we still have supplies. Okay. That said, let me take any final questions that you might have just for a couple minutes here.
Hey Raj, I know one of the quick questions was how soon can we send out the link to the recording?
Good question. I just got to get it up onto YouTube and then
Okay.
after that. So ideally I can get up on YouTube this afternoon and then maybe we'll send it out right after that.
Sweet.
The director's cut, I'll be able to send you like pretty much ASAP after this. But this exact session, I just need a little bit more time.
Awesome.
Yeah,
do you want to, you can hit the questions here. It looks like Jennifer just had one come in.
Sure. Jennifer asked, can you talk a little bit more about the approach? Yes. So to repeat on the approach, your ultimate brand promise, like what is that overarching promise your product has to the market? It's a 1 or 2 line statement, and it's going to bridge into talking about your solution. Otherwise, there's not enough of a segue from problem to solution without the approach. Let's see here. Someone asks, Paul asked on Carson's pitch at the end, did someone coach him on his pitch delivery, or did you coach him on that? In the process of developing the elevator pitch, what we'll do is be like, here's how you want to deliver this. But that day, like literally that was a 1-take pitch, or it's a 2-take. The first time we did it through, he accidentally tripped while walking. But I didn't say like, hey, here's how I want you to deliver this. I just showed up and was like, hey, let's do the pitch. So the cool thing is when you get the messaging right, like your confidence kind of automatically starts to change, and then you start to feel the style that you want to deliver it in. But when we're helping build it, we also give some ideas on how you should, like what cadence you should be speaking it at. Someone asked, where do we go from here? Jeffrey, I don't know what you necessarily mean by that if you're still on the call. You can either come off mute or add more in the chat. While you're adding more detail there, Arazu asks, can you talk about versions of the pitch for customers, investors, et cetera? Yeah, so here's what I feel like people misunderstand. When you're doing this elevator pitch for investors, you're just still delivering your market, your customer value prop, but to investors. And one of the biggest mistakes I see is a founder, because they're talking to an investor, they'll be like, education is a $900 trillion market, right? Market size is table stakes. Don't lead with that. It's assumed that you have a big market. And by the way, they've heard a ton of numbers already, like just from everyone. So still lead with that like 1-to-1 customer value prop, but you're explaining to them what it's like for your market. And then at the end in your action step, layer in like, and it's great because it's a huge, market opportunity. It's valued at 500, it's a $500 billion market and growing. And we've got these starting points already. The other thing that I would caution everyone against, someone in the beginning said Uber for laundry. I think it was Jennifer maybe. I personally, and if Y Combinator ever gets in touch with me, they'll probably shoot me down for saying this because they say start with an analogy. I am here to tell you, I do not believe in starting with an analogy for the reason that, let's say for 6 months, you were like, we're like FTX, but for this. And then FTX has the most historic collapse. And now you've got 6 months of tying your brand equity to FTX. You have no control over what Uber is going to do. So don't potentially misalign yourself. The other reason is that a lot of companies, I don't know if this is the case for you, Jennifer, but a lot of founders, just because it happens to be some form of on-demand, they call it Uber for this, or they call it this for that. And it's not a true analogy. Like a friend of mine years ago was calling his thing Uber for photography. And he was dead set on Uber for photography, but it actually led him to, because it was on-demand photographer, but it led him to make false assumptions about how his market would behave. Because the reality is Uber is transportation. And every day you and I have to get somewhere. Regardless of method, we have to go somewhere every day. We don't have to have a photographer on hand every day. So the reorder rate in photography is significantly lower than whatever a transportation company would be. So it's like too many times it's not a 1-to-1, or it's not a perfectly aligned analogy. And I think it does more harm than good. I think if you use an analogy, tie yourself instead to fictional characters or events or things. Like when I say things, I mean like it's like a library, but for this. Or when I first started Startup Hypeman, I said, if you've seen Will Smith's movie Hitch, it's like Hitch for startups. And Hitch is a protected character. Will Smith can slap Chris Rock at the Grammys, but Hitch is still a protected character, right? The movie came out and it's done with, and that will forever be that character. Nothing changes. So that's where I would say an analogy could work, but I am an advocate of don't fall on we'll just use an analogy and get it out of the way. All right, I know we are like well over time today. We'll get these recordings out to you as soon as possible. Again, reach out if this is something you want support with on your journey, and hopefully we'll see you inside the Goat to Market Club as well. Thank you again, Jeff and Forecastr, and we'll be doing a whole lot more with Forecastr this year too, so stay on the lookout for that.
Raj, you're awesome, man. This was great. Loved the content and excited to share it with more people. So
right on.
All right, we'll let everybody run here. I know Jeffrey has a question. Do we have time for just one more?
Yeah, sure.
If you wanted.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Yeah, I guess I was expecting an ask at the end, and join the Goat to Market Club is one ask. So that's fulfilled my expectation. Raj, I wonder if you'd give us your elevator pitch for Hype Nation.
Sorry, say it again.
If you'd give us the elevator pitch for Hype Nation.
Yeah, Startup Hypeman is the company name. Yeah, RajNATION is my personal brand name, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And this is actually how I got the company started in the first place and got us into market. We talk to founders every day who flat out tell us we suck at telling our story. And that's the thing that they recognize is the delta between where they are today and where they're trying to go with respect to their fundraising and go-to-market goals. We help remove the suck, and we help build a pitch where you stand out to your audience and stand apart from your competitors by positioning you not as the best, but as the only. And companies who are the only take over industries. Learn more at startuphypeman.com, or do you want, if it's a cold email, it's like, interested to learn more, want to meet, something like that.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Yep. Man, dog food and right there. That was fantastic. Great job.
I appreciate you putting me on the spot like that, right? Like, because you got to know, like, hey, can this guy do it too?
That was awesome. Well, good. Well, hey, thanks again, everybody, for joining. And Raj, looking forward to working with you more here in the coming months and weeks.
Right on. Appreciate y'all. Have a good week. And
Thanks,
hopefully
everybody.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.